activists who were investigating factories in China have been detained. Now, one has definitely been detained, and his wife has confirmed that. However, two of the investigators just went missing. No one has heard from them, and the assumption is that they've been detained. Now, a labor activist researching working conditions in a Chinese factory that makes shoes for Ivanka Trump's label has been detained by police, while two others have gone missing and are presumed also to be detained. Now, two of the activists were told they were not allowed to leave China in April and May. Now, they were all part of an organization known as China Labor Watch, which is based in New York. They were in China doing this investigation in order to give this organization in New York essentially information about what's going on in these factories. And apparently authorities in China caught on to them, and as a result, there were some ramifications, first in the form of essentially a travel ban, and then now they've been detained. Now, their initial report alleged that employees are forced to work at least 12.5 hours a day and at least 6 days a week at a monthly salary of about $365. It said pay for some workers amounted to the equivalent of less than $1 an hour. Now, those are averages. There were days where some of the workers were there for over 18 hours, working 18 hours straight. And so there are some, human rights abuses there, some labor abuses there, and this is all something that was important for their investigation. And also, keep in mind that this is one of the factories that makes shoes and products for Ivanka Trump's brand. And so there's a political component to it as well.
So look, my guess is the Chinese government is not happy about these guys exposing the working conditions overall. But the fact that it's going to embarrass the president of the United States, who at this point is doing a lot of favors for China. Remember during the campaign, Donald Trump talked a big game about how he's going to crack down on China and end their currency manipulation, and he threatened tariffs, etc. Then he met with a Chinese leader and said, well, I didn't know that the situation was this complicated. And it turns out we need China's help with North Korea. Now, anyone who studies this, and if you're running for president, I would have hoped that you would have studied for it, but obviously he didn't, knows that of course you need China's help in North Korea. And of course it's not easy to just do unilateral tariffs or crack down on their currency manipulation. There's going to be ramifications and consequences. But Donald Trump's a child and didn't understand that. So now, by the way, Jared Kushner then went on to try to do a $4 billion deal with a company related to the Chinese government. They got so much blowback on that the Chinese company had to step back from the deal, but it was going to give several $100 million more to the Kushner family than those properties are estimated to be worth in New York. That is a giant payoff to the Trump family.
Right.
So now, within that context, when you see someone who's going to investigate Ivanka Trump's brands in China and all of a sudden they disappear, well, the Chinese government then should be under more scrutiny, not less.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And also keep in mind that there were internal memos in regard to the fact that Ivanka Trump had hired this factory to produce some of her products, and that maybe these investigations aren't so great in terms of optics. So let me give you the details on that, and this is based on the reporting of Simon Denner from the Washington Post. He writes that the Global Times cited staff members from two factories as saying their companies had received a memo from Ivanka Trump's China-based agent shortly after the US department store Nordstrom dropped her product in February, notifying them that any media report on her suppliers in China would not be good for her image for political reasons. So they were essentially warned, no bad press for Ivanka. And now, look, and by the way, it's super irresponsible to speculate, and I hope no one thinks we're speculating. It just looks very questionable considering the fact that one of the investigators for sure has been detained, and then two of them are just missing. Their family members haven't heard from them, and there's this assumption that they've been detained, but we still have no confirmation on that.
Yeah, and I want to be clear when we say don't speculate. Some people might start assuming that they're dead or something, or the Chinese government killed them or tortured. We don't. No. All we know is one detained, two missing. Okay, right. And we do know that the Chinese government has a lot of incentive to make sure that Ivanka Trump's brand stays clean, because it turns out the Trump administration has been fantastic to China so far. They've not touched them at all. And so far have given them everything they want. In fact, Trump said after meeting with the Chinese leader that that the Chinese leader taught him about North Korea, and now he understands the situation more. No, but that's the Chinese perspective. You shouldn't take that at face value. You should listen to our intelligence officials, but you know how Trump is. So far, China is very, very happy and wants to keep good relationships with the Trump administration. We'll see if that winds up being part of the reason that these people are missing. What's in TYT membership? Not gonna tell you. Only one way to find out, tytnetwork.com/join.